Chris Grayling, how important do you think these Patchwork Awards are?
I think it's all about ensuring that there's a real connection between what happens here at Westminster and what happens amongst some of our minority communities, some of the newer communities in this country, and some of the deprived areas of this country. I mean, I suspect that it's very easy to regard Westminster as something as remote and distant and irrelevant. And of course we don't want that. We want the entire British community of all races, colours and creeds engaged in public life, feeling that the House of Commons is theirs, feeling that their representative, no matter who they are, is their representative. And so I think it's all about strengthening our community in that way.
Does the fact that someone has seen a need for these awards indicate that perhaps there are some MPs who are not as engaged as they could be with the ethnic minority and deprived communities in Britain?
I don't think it would be fair to say that. I think within an individual constituency you'll find almost every MP is very focused on getting out around the community, knowing all the different groups in the area they represent. I think that's a given. I think it's much more about Parliament as an institution, about members of Parliament not just as constituency figures, but actually as national political figures, building those bridges to minority communities, whether that's visiting community groups on the ground when you're in different parts of the country to the one you represent, whether it's engaging with some of the national bodies, some of the national forums, and some of the great events that promote the minority communities. I think if you look at one example, I think the Asian business community in this country is a brilliant success story. There are a number of very high-profile events that champion the success of the Asian business community, and I always say, frankly, that without the Asian business community, our economy would be a poorer place. And the more that we as members of Parliament can engage with them, can champion and promote what they do, can demonstrate their potential to grow the economy of this country and create jobs for some of those young people in deprived areas. It's about saying there's a real contribution to be made, there are some serious role models here, and it's about demonstrating that Parliament understands the role that minority communities play, understands the challenges that exist in some of those communities, understands the challenges that exist in deprived areas, and is a real kind of advocate, a voice of the importance of all of those communities and what they do for us.
A lot of what you said is looking at it from the national perspective, but of course you are a constituency MP as well, a predominantly white constituency, very small ethnic minority community. You don't have to get engaged in this to the extent that you have, do you?
Well, you say that, but it's actually growing all the time. I've got a thriving mosque. I've got a fabulous Hindu temple. There's such a great group of people. It's a very awe-inspiring place. It's just a small building that's been turned into a Hindu temple. It's a very moving place to go and to go through a period of worship with them, but also to feel that this is a community that is doing positive things for the broader community. I'm very proud of the minority communities in my own constituency, and they're a real role model for our society as a whole.
But there are some MPs out there in predominantly white constituencies, if we can put it no more strongly than that, who don't feel a need to get engaged with the ethnic communities. Do you think that that is wrong? Do you think that every MP has got a responsibility, no matter how large the ethnic and deprived communities that they have in their constituency, to get engaged with this issue so that Britain can become truly a nation where ethnic communities and deprived communities are woven into the fabric of life?
I think it should be a given, certainly. My own view is that whatever political party you've been elected for, you represent every single person in the constituency, whatever their background, whatever their race, whatever their occupation, whatever their circumstances. And so it's absolutely the job of members of Parliament to be out there in deprived areas in their constituency. We all have them to a greater or lesser degree, out there talking to newer residents, people who've come from other countries relatively recently, at emerging community groups. As you say, my own constituency, the minority population has grown and grown over the last about 15 years, very visibly so, and is playing a really important part in the local community. And I think that every member of Parliament, frankly, should be making sure they're in contact with, they know and understand as many as possible of the people they represent, and know and understand the issues and challenges they face.
Now, the media often characterise the ethnic community in terms of extremism. Do you think that's wrong? And if so, what could be done about it?
I think my view is that there are extremists in every community, in every part of the world, in every religion. We've spent a long time fighting terrorism in Northern Ireland, some terrible atrocities, young people blown up in pubs when they're out for an evening out. We have our own challenges within the Christian community. There are challenges within the Muslim community, there are challenges within the Hindu community. No matter where you look in the world, there are difficulties. What that should never ever be allowed to do is to create a sense that any particular group is dominated by an extremist ideology. If I look at the Muslim community in my own constituency, they are thoroughly decent people who are backbone of the local community, run businesses, run shops, run restaurants, are trainee lawyers, are trainee doctors, are operating on people in the local hospital, are leading consultants in the local health system. They play a hugely important part in our community, and we must never, ever, ever allow the actions of an extremist minority to taint the reputation of a particular religious or ethnic group.
But do you think the media could do better on that front to present a more representative picture of ethnic communities?
I think it's really important that whenever a problem emerges, wherever it comes from, that the media puts that problem into context. It is simply not good for this country that the overwhelming majority of decent, hard-working members of the Muslim community, that the overwhelming majority of decent, hard-working people who live in Northern Ireland, for example, should ever have their reputation and their image tainted by the actions of a very small, unpleasant minority who do real harm to innocent people.
The Patchwork Awards, their first year, how would you like to see this award ceremony develop?
Well, I hope that this will carry on in the next few years as a beacon for good practice in Parliament, to encourage members of Parliament to look out for the interests of the different community groups they represent, to make sure they know and understand the issues and challenges that the different community groups represent, and to really make sure that we work towards a cohesive society that, where everybody gets on regardless of who they are.
Chris Grayling, thanks very much and congratulations.
Thank you.